Welcome, everybody. My name is Rui. I'm the show host for Music Success Show. I'm excited to bring another guest here. He is from New York. He's a guitarist, bassist with a reputation for being a fast learner and the ability to handle multiple projects at once. He's the current bassist for Zero and the guitarist for pop rock band Faster Than Light. He also regularly plays with the Layovers and the Fugitive Souls. His project, Faster Than Light, has released two new singles from an upcoming record. The songs are Someone I Know and Blacker. Welcome to the show, Lenn. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me, Rui.
Hey, you awesome, man. Um, Listen, you have an interesting background as I was reading through your bio. Can you explain to us why did you decided in the first place to actually be in the music business?
Well, the music business is, thankfully it's not a business that I need to rely on in order to eat. Because if I had to rely on it for food, I'd have died of starvation years ago. It's the toughest industry in the world. When I was, my first popular band that I played in, I was about 18 years old, 19 years old. I was in a band called Threshold that had some local success, or maybe notoriety is a better word. But the band was insanely talented, and we just couldn't pull it together as a group of six musicians to take it to the level that we really wanted to, and for a lot of reasons. And from there, I just never wanted to stop playing in bands. And the bottom line is, it's a very competitive industry, as everyone knows. And there are so many amazingly talented people, way more talented than I will ever be. So you need to figure out a way to separate yourself from the rest, especially if you're not that virtuoso guitar player or songwriter. And I've never been able to do that because it's just that hard. So had to go to college and get a degree and earn a living the old-fashioned way. So I became a school teacher. I figured I'll have my summers off. I could play music during the summer. And as it turns out, I never stopped playing music. Even teaching a day, playing music at night, in any band I could latch onto. And then even in summers, then all of a sudden someone offered summer school to me, and that was an extra paycheck during the summer. So I took it, of course. And basically, I've had a 30 plus year career as a musician in the New York area, but really unable to get it to the point where you can go on the road and actually sustain yourself and make a living and feed yourself from doing it, let alone raising a family. It's that competitive. That being said, with the internet recently, and also with, I think, just finally honing my craft and my skills enough where I've had the confidence now to really go out there and put myself out there on stage more regularly, to write songs, to release them. It's funny because sometimes I get my I check my streams daily from from my publishing, and it's amazing. People download tons of downloads from Australia, New Zealand, Indonesia, and that could never have happened in 1989 when I started playing. And it's so I'm starting to kind of feel like there are people out there that are liking what I do. They're validating my efforts, so to speak. But again, can I take my bands on tour to Australia, to New Zealand from New York, and one, expect to make money? Two, even if I did make money, will I break even? And three, how do I get the rest of the guys in my band to also have day jobs? How do I say to them, hey, I need you to take 2 weeks off so that we can go to Australia and play gigs and not make a lot of money and sleep in a van? It's a very, very tough industry. So I've got myself to the point now where I've said, let's create music, let's put it out there, let's see what sticks. And if something sticks and something cool happens with it and people like it, then that's going to be a win for us.
Absolutely. I mean, to some degree, I totally understand what you're saying. Some of the problems got solved, right? There's bigger exposure. At the same time, other problems, meaning financing to touring and doing live shows. There are already some platforms out there, but I don't think it's totally solved.
Yeah.
Nevertheless, I look at your profile. I mean, you play with all these bands. Like, how do you manage to be able to play with so many projects?
It's not easy, and all of the projects don't always run parallel to each other. So like Faster Than Light has really relegated itself to just a recording project at this point. But still, there's time to write. There's time to get into the studio to record. There's expenses involved. And I'll be honest with you, it's a lot of work in between the hours of 10 p.m. and 2 a.m. And then it's getting up. I'm up at 4:45 in the morning to go to work.
Wow.
So it's a lot of nights on 3 and 4 hours sleep. And that's, I kind of have to weigh that. If I want to continue making music, and I do, then I have to work around my job. I have 3 kids, I have a wife, so I have to work around family obligations. And if that means that at 10 o'clock is when I'm sitting down to write lyrics or play my bass or practice a song, that's the only time I can do it. And I'm willing to make that sacrifice right now. And again, I'm 54 years old. So again, we've been doing this since I was 16 years old. Um, I'm willing to make that sacrifice as long as my health holds up. There will be a day where I can't do it anymore, where I won't be able to go to work on 4 hours sleep. But as of right now, I'm going pretty strong.
Excellent. Now, what were your early influences when you started in music? How did you? What were you listening to?
Well, it's funny. My mom was a piano player, and my grandfather, who I don't remember, I may have met him a couple of times when I was really, really young. But he was a professional clarinet player. He was in like the army band. He cut records in New York City during the Jazz Age. I don't know if you know what 78s are, but 78s were a size record that right in between 45s and 33s, and he cut records. And so music's always been in the family, and it's always been playing in my house growing up. And my mom was like a big, she liked the Rolling Stones. She was a big country music fan, Alice Cooper. She liked some cool music, Linda Ronstadt. So I always heard it growing up. And then I remember I was in 6th grade, and I guess we got a flyer home saying that if you wanted to play an instrument, you had to bring in $10 for a deposit on an instrument. And I'm looking. My mom said, "You have to learn how to play an instrument. This is what we do in our family. Everyone knows how to play something, so you have to pick something." And I was forced to play an instrument.
Right.
And I saw the list, and it was clarinet, trumpet, trombone. It was all these instruments that I had no interest in. So I just picked trumpet because I thought it might be the most annoying to my parents, and maybe at some point they would just like not want to deal with it. And they gave me $10, and I went to school that day, and I did not use the $10 for the rental. I went into town with a friend of mine, and we spent the $10 at a store. We bought candy, and they actually sold records, and records were only like $4.99 then. We're going back to like 1980. And so I bought a record and I brought it home. And of course, I got in trouble for not spending, the money on the trumpet. But I told my mom, it's like, if I have to play an instrument, please get me a guitar. And she did. My parents bought me a guitar. I played for 3 months. I took lessons. I was horrible. I quit after 3 months. I had I don't know if you're a guitar player or not, but I had the grooves in my fingers, because I don't have the calluses yet. And it just hurt, and I wasn't any good. And I quit after 3 months. But then when I was about 16 years old, and I started discovering like Iron Maiden and Twisted Sister and a lot of these heavy metal bands, Kiss, that's when I picked it back up. But but as far as like my influences, I remember all that stuff that came out like in the late 70s. So like Peter Frampton, Frampton Comes Alive, Elton John, Goodbye Yellow Brick Road, Led Zeppelin, Houses of the Holy. And then when Fleetwood Mac Rumors came out, that for me was like a game changer. I was like, I love this band. I love this music. And to this day, they're still my favorite bands. And I think probably that album, maybe when I think about it, might be the album that inspired me to really want to be a musician one day. I think that and Elton John's Goodbye Yellow Brick Road as well. But it was, you know, it's funny because I kind of started with that, FM radio type of stuff. And then I gravitated towards really, really super heavy music. And then I kind of pulled back a little bit. And now I just listen to whatever I think is good. So I still listen to the heavy metal. I still listen to Fleetwood Mac. I still listen to Zeppelin. I listen to Rush. I listen to, and even like some softer music if it's good, Steely Dan, if it's good. And I try not to close too many doors. Like I'm not a big country music fan, but I'm not a big jazz fan. But if something's interesting, I'll give it a listen. I'll give it at least one listen
Sure,
before I make a decision on it.
sure. Do you listen to any of the modern, more contemporary music that is played out there, like hip hop or?
I'm not a big hip hop fan, but I do listen to some rap or hip hop occasionally. I have connections with some musicians in the music industry who are really worldwide, and I'm not going to mention names here, but I do have friends in that world who do it for a living, and they're fantastic. I've been fortunate enough to I have kids. I have three kids. They're 20, 18, and 15. So they're always bringing new music in. My daughter likes a lot of the hip hop. Well, I mean, a little bit of hip hop, but she likes Taylor Swift, and she likes some of the more pop stuff. My son Adam likes rock music. But he's always bringing new stuff to me. My son Adam, or Max, who's the oldest one, I think he's more like me. He listens to he likes classic rock and metal. But if I hear anything new, it's usually from my daughter or my son Adam. But nothing, not too much that's made me want to go out of my way to listen to it. But stuff that if we're listening to it in the car, it's not always so horrible where I have to say, nope, we're changing this.
Sure, I totally understand. I'm just picturing as you speak. I'm just picturing your house with all these kids coming with different kinds of music and.
Yeah, and it's funny because when I was growing up, my house between me and my brother, our house was always the house that people went to hear the latest music. It's like people knock on the door, literally, did you get anything new this week? What are you listening to? So like our house was like always like, it was almost like a music store. People would come in, knock on the door, and they would, want to go through my record collection or want to go through my cassettes. And, you know, I guess now I'm kind of doing that through my kids.
You're reliving your childhood in another way, right?
Yeah, I don't even think I ever left my childhood. I still, it's funny. I still refer to myself as being 12 years old.
Okay, awesome. Now, how is it nowadays the music scene in New York? How would you describe it?
I would say that if you went back about 12, 13, 14 years ago, now I live about 30-minute car ride north of New York City. So I'm in the New York City suburbs. Um, the music scene was dead maybe 15 years ago. And what had happened was, in my opinion, it was dead. And I actually, I want to take a little bit of credit for this, but a bunch of friends who were musicians got together and we put together a band called Standing Room Only, SRO. And we started playing. We drew big crowds. We had a really nice fan base, loyal fan base. And it seemed like once we started getting the ball rolling, other bands started coming out again, and the music scene kind of really started to kick off again. And so maybe it's a bold statement to say that I'm partly responsible for it, but I truly believe that that band SRO really jump started the music scene. Um, Pretty much now on a Friday night or a Saturday night, you can always find two or three or four different shows, within like a 20-minute drive from where I live north of the city. You can always go into the city and find music, but going into the city is a hassle. It's very expensive. By the time you get done with bridges and tolls and parking, you're already $100 into your night, and then you're going to a club and you're spending another $100, and then you're going out to eat. And going to see a band in the city is a $250 ordeal. It's you can do it cheaper, but you're not having the best time that you could have if you do it that way. But up here, north of the city, there's again tons and tons of brilliant musicians, great bands, great talent, and you can have a great night out for $30, and you're not paying a cover to get in most places. Now that being said, our band's making a lot of money in Rockland County where I live. It seems like the typical pay for a band is about $100 a man. There are bands that do command more than that, but you know, on a good night, like when I play with Zero, on a good night, we're making 600, $700 because we do bring a nice crowd. We bring a drinking crowd, and, you know, the more alcohol that these clubs sell, they're making more money, and they're more willing to pay us a little bit more so that we can book there again and bring that crowd back to them. But it's competitive, and you might have to wait 3 months from the time that you play a gig. Like we played a gig a few weeks ago with Zero. We had a great gig, packed house. But there's so many bands that are trying to book, even though they had a great night. We still have to wait 2 months, 3 months to get the next booking at that club because there's just so many bands that are out there. Especially since the COVID restrictions started opening up and bands started having clubs started having live music again. I did do a couple of like streams with other projects that I was in, but they're they're pretty lame. There's no energy. You're not playing for a crowd. The audio and video is usually iffy at best. But now that things are opening up, people are just dying to get out there and watch bands, and it's been it's really picked up over like the last 3 to 4 months where you can go see any band, regardless of the quality of the band, whether they have a reputation for being a great band or a so-so band. And there's just tons of people out there because people just want to get out there and see live music again.
Sure.
So I'd say the scene is pretty strong right now.
Okay, so are we saying that there's not enough clubs to there's many musicians and bands wanted to play and not enough clubs to outflow the volume of music? Is that what you're saying?
I think that there's room for a couple of more clubs in my scene, where I'm based north of the city. There's probably room for a few more clubs, but again, also, there's like 4 or 5 really strong clubs where I live, and if they're booked, there's just enough people to get in, and another club or two might start to dilute that audience because people may want to go check out a band for a set and then leave and go somewhere else, and then just kind of like we're one of the towns that we play in is Nyack, New York, and it's right on the Hudson River north of New York City. And we played there. We played at the club a few weeks ago, and there was like 4 bars right almost adjacent to each other, and they all had bands. And
Wow.
we were fortunate. Like the club that we played at, I mean, you couldn't even fit anyone else into the club. We really had a great crowd. Even a friend of mine who went to high school with sent me a text. I can't get in. I can't get through the door. They're not letting anyone in. So I think if the band is good, there's always going to be people who will kind of come out. If the band is so, you'll still get a crowd, but it's kind of like the strong survive. Like in any business or any industry.
Right.
And the same goes with the clubs. Some clubs are just better to play at. They're a better dining experience. The bars are nicer. They're bigger. They're more comfortable. The parking is better, and that plays a big part of it also. Depending on like if you just want to go out and see a band.
Absolutely. Now, what has been or what uh, do you consider is your biggest challenge so far in this industry?
I think the biggest challenge is getting your music to a lot of people. Um, Getting your fan base, and I'll include friends in that, to spend $1 to buy your song. I think with streaming, everyone has a Spotify subscription or iTunes, Apple Music, Amazon, Google Play. It's just so easy to download your favorite songs to a playlist, and you might get, maybe if you're lucky, you get a penny for that stream.
Right.
A lot of times, you get a fraction of a penny for a stream, and it doesn't even pay. So I think it's hard to kind of convince someone to listen to Faster Than Light instead of listening to Journey or Led Zeppelin or Rush or another established band. That it's hard to break into that club. And if everyone could break into it, it wouldn't be so special. But it's really, really hard to kind of get to that level. And especially if you're not touring, especially if you're not getting out there and meeting new people and forcing your music on them. And there's just not, in my situation, again, I have a good job and a family, and my band members, they're in the same boat. We just don't have the ability to take off for long periods of time and get out there and force our music down people's throats. It's something that we can't do. We should have done it when we were 20,
Right.
but we didn't know each other when we were 20. So that's part of it too.
Right, and there was you didn't have all these opportunities as well, right? It was a different world, a different industry at that time, correct?
Yeah, and at that time, you know, there was no, again, there's I'm my career goes before the internet. So the only way that you were really making it, right, was to go in, record a professional demo at your expense, and then you had to go knock on record company doors and you had to get the right person to listen. And then if you were lucky, you know, the gatekeeper, someone at a record label will say, "Hey, we like you. We think you have potential. We're going to take you under our wing. We're going to groom you. We're going to invest in you. We're going to get a proper recording done. We're going to put you on the road with other bands in front of a lot of people. And we're going to see if your music sticks." And now there's none of that. Every record company, first of all, there's no good record deals anymore. No one's making money from records. Everything that you're making now is from playing live shows. You're certainly not making money streaming unless you're, you know, unless you're Taylor Swift or Kanye West. You're not making money that way. So it's really just now, if you're going to get a record label behind you, first of all, they're going to take 50% of everything, including your T-shirt sales, and you know, and they don't want to invest money or time in grooming you. They want the finished product,
Right.
and Faster Than Light is not the finished product. None of my bands are the finished product. Very few are, and it's a very frustrating industry. And I'm almost at the point where I'm convinced that the only way to break through is to just write that one killer song that, for whatever reason, breaks through everything else that's out there. Someone likes it. Someone puts it on a playlist on Spotify, or someone, you know, someone in the industry hears it and wants to put it into a movie or into a TV show. I'm
Well,
convinced.
you actually, sorry to interrupt you, and I think you know that this. If you don't, I will tell you right now. You actually have to pay to have the song could be a hit. You have to pay for that song to be on a playlist. It's
Yeah, and I won't do that
yeah,
because just out of principle,
yeah,
and and at the end of the day, I've realized that I'm not going to become a rich and famous rock star. And it was never about being rich. It was never about being famous. It was always about making music. And it's about making music on my terms and making music that I will enjoy listening to, so that when I sit in my car, I can put in my CD or my, you know, my songs, and I can listen to it and I can be proud of it and I can enjoy it. Just like I would put on, you know, an Elton John record or a Fleetwood Mac record, and enjoy it. If other people love it, that's great. If other people want to purchase my music, stream my music, even have my music for free, I've given away more CDs than I've sold. Um, I'm all for that. I want to get my music out there, but like I said, at this point, I'm convinced that the way that I think you have to break into this industry, if you're not willing to or able to take it on the road at whatever sacrifice that is, I'm convinced that you just have to have that one song that somehow breaks through. And again, I'm one of a million artists, you know, in the United States alone, probably, who's trying to get that breakthrough song. And only 3 or 4 of them are going to get it.
right. I think that you have touched at a good point where, because I was thinking about what you were saying, and so to your point, do you feel that a person today can still make a dent when it comes to making money in the industry, or do you feel that we haven't arrived there yet?
I think that you can make money in the industry. but you have to be smarter than everyone else. Ultimately, you have to have better songs than everyone else because, the cream is always going to rise to the top. And again, there are so many great players out there, but you have to have everything. You have to have the look, you have to have the songs, you have to have the chops on your instruments, you have to be personable, relatable, your lyrics have to connect, your music has to connect. And of course, if you know the right person, that helps. And I do say that you can make a dent because as a teacher, I've had two former students who have gone on to have great careers in the music industry. One, like a major, major rock star. And if I told you who he was, you'd know him. And I'll tell you, off air because I don't want to,
You you
mention
you
it.
say it on a
I,
show.
I'd rather not. I'd rather not. But I'll tell you offhand. Only because I try to keep. You know what it is. Also, I try to keep because my connection with this person is not the fact that um, it's not the fact that he's a rock star. It's the fact that we're friends and I've known him in the family for a long time. And I never try to take advantage of that. Like even when I go to watch this person in concert, I always buy tickets first, with my own money, and then I text them and say, "Hey, I'm coming to the show." And then my friend always says, "Oh, do you need tickets?" And it's like, "No, I got them." And he's like, "No, I'll leave you better seats." And it's like, "No, I got them. Don't worry. I'll catch up with you at some point." And I don't like to take advantage of that because that's what he does for a living. So I don't want a free ticket. I want to support him because I want more records and I want more shows. And then I have another former student who I'll tell you the story again without mentioning the name, but this is a student of mine who was born with only one arm, and one of his arms was just kind of cut off at the elbow. And he was in my office one day, and I always used to keep this is when I was teaching high school. I always used to keep a guitar in my classroom, and I was playing my guitar one day. And my friend, well, he's a friend now, but he was a student at the time, and he walks in and he says, "Mr. Lenn, I always wanted to play an instrument." But I have one arm. It's really hard. And I said to him, "Why don't you learn how to sing?" And he learned how to sing. And he ended up playing moving to Boston, playing in a punk rock band in Boston. And the band is phenomenal. They're not together. Sadly, they're not together anymore. But I got to see him play at Warped Tour many years ago. And, got to know him, as not just as a student, but got to know him as a human being. And then I saw also, on his Instagram videos, he figured out a way to play guitar.
Wow.
And the guy plays guitar, and he's great. And it's so I do think that you can make a dent. But again, you know, these are two special people, more special than me, because they figured out a way to do it, and I didn't. You know, and I have no regrets. I'm very comfortable finally as a musician. I'm comfortable with what I've achieved because I've achieved more than most. I didn't get rich and famous. I didn't get to tour the world, but I'm okay with that. It was never about that in the first place, ever. If it was, I would have just, quit college. I would have not taken a job as a teacher. I would have been one of those starving musicians. But you know, with my upbringing, it was kind of like, expected. You got to go to high school, and then you got to go to college, and then you have to get a job, and then you have to get married, and then you have to have a family, and then you have to give us grandkids. That's what was expected. And a lot of us just kind of fell into that. And again, no regrets, but, I guess I wasn't willing to lay it all on the line like other people were.
Right. Well,
And
you have the right mindset and attitude, and that's very important. That's why I invite all sorts of musicians and artists to this platform, because it's
yeah,
not really just about who's, one way to view success. Meaning, if you're not rich and famous, that there's different levels and there's different aspects of being a musician, and you're a perfect example of that. Now let's talk about songwriting and your recording. How do you approach songwriting and recording in the studio? I believe you have a studio, correct? Am I wrong?
well, you can probably see a lot of guitars hanging on the wall behind me. It's more of an office than a studio. I don't do any recording here. I have two studios that I've used in the last 5 or 6 years. One of them is called J Rod Productions, which is in Pomona, New York. Um, Fantastic engineer, fantastic studio. Right now, I've been recording the new Faster Than Light CD in the home studio of my singer in the band Zero. And I've been using, he's been engineering for me, and I've been using, all of his equipment. All I'm doing is bringing my guitars and basses and getting my bandmates in, when it's their turn to do their parts. Um, Songwriting is, it's always been the same formula. I've always been a lyrics person first. And I don't, my lyrics are not usually very serious. They're not always about something. A lot of times they're words that kind of flow together in such a way that they're cohesive. And then once the lyrics are done, I'll try to fit some music to it. And if I'm successful and I have a song and I'm happy with it, sometimes I'll go back and I'll try to figure out, well, what do these lyrics really mean? What was I thinking about when I wrote that line? Who was I thinking about? Or is it just like fictional? I have like Faster Than Light was created with this I guess I'll call her a character. Her name is Jessica, and a lot of the songs revolve around Jessica, who's not a real person, but she's kind of like a mishmash of a lot of different girls that I've met over the years and have known. And there's the good parts and the bad parts and everything in between. And it's like a little fictional. I call it a twisted fictional universe that exists in my head, and I kind of understand how everything works. And most of the songs are connected to that universe in some way. Um, but it's always been words first. Actually, even before words, I'm notorious when I'm bored, even when I'm at work, or when you know, if I have to sit somewhere, if I have to go to like a workshop, or if I'm in class or something. If I'm taking a class, I get bored very easily. I'll just start scribbling like cool song titles, and I might end up like in half an hour. I might end up with a list of like 30 or 40 song titles, and then one of them will stick. And then I'll try to fit lyrics, and then I'll go back and I'll find music that will fit. Or sometimes I write music first, and then I'll go and I'll look in my lyric book, and I'll say, all right, let's see, I wrote this, I wrote this, I wrote this. Maybe one of these will fit with what I was just jamming on. So it's, that's usually what happens. Usually the lyrics are always completed first. On the Faster Than Light CD, which came out in 2017, most of those lyrics were written in the mid 90s. They were there were songs that I wrote, lyrics that I wrote when I was going to graduate school. I was living in Albany, New York. And maybe you read this in my bio, but one day I grabbed a bottle of wine, and I grabbed my acoustic guitar, and I sat up on my porch in my house, and I wrote a song called Dull, which we just recorded for the second CD, but I'm not sure if it's going to be on there yet. We'll see when it's fully mixed. But I wrote that song, and I was like, hey, not so bad. Let me try to write some more. And I ended up writing a lot of songs, maybe 30 or 40 songs. And I didn't do anything with them other than I was in a band called Teasing Erica when I lived in Albany. And I played a few of the songs out with my band, but I didn't really do anything with it. And then when I moved back from Albany to where I live now, just north of the city, a drummer who I worked with, and he's one of my best friends, ever, Doug Maresca. I played him some of the songs, and he said, we got to record these. These are really good. Let's get in the studio and do it. So we did, and that's what that first CD was. And when we finished it, I told Doug, I said, there are more songs, and he was like, well, let's take a break, and then let's go back in and do them. And so that's what we've started doing now. So we have 2 songs that are fully mixed and mastered, and those are the ones that are out, Someone I Know and Blacker. I have 3 more songs that are very, very close to being finished. And then I think I know what the next 10 are going to be. And then we're going to record 15, and we're going to choose 13 for the new CD.
Great, man. What do you believe was the best advice? Seems like you're well connected. What was the best advice you ever received in the music industry?
Don't give up. Don't give up. I still believe, and it's funny. I took my son to one of my sons had knee surgery recently, and I took him to a surgeon who I knew because I played in the band with his sister. And We had never really met, like just very briefly, but he's a drummer, local drummer. He's been playing around for decades, like me. And I took my son into him, and the first thing he said to my son is like, "Do you realize that your father is like a legend, for musicians in where we live?" And I know he was like half joking. I'm not a legend, but everyone knows me because I've been playing around here for so long. But it's I forgot what the question was.
The question is, what was the best advice you ever received?
Uh, yeah, so it was like, so it was like not to give up because I still believe that, I have like a reputation, which I think is a pretty good one, for 99% of the people. Um, I still get out there. People still are excited to come out and see me play and listen to my songs, even though I know they don't always want to. But, not giving up. And I still believe, like at 54 years old, I still believe I have that one song in me. It may not be a song that's going to lead me to being able to go on tour and quit my job and become a rock star. But I think I have that one song that can find itself in a movie somewhere, or can find itself in a commercial or on TV, or maybe on the radio. And maybe instead of 500 streams or 1,000 streams, maybe 25,000 streams. I still have it in me. I know I do. It's just, hasn't happened yet. And I use the word yet because I do believe that it will happen. And if I didn't believe it would happen, I'd still do it anyway because I love it.
Awesome, man. I love your passion.
Thank you.
Do you like what favorite music tool do you use? Like, if there's a thing that man, I gotta have that. I just love.
Hmm. So I go through gear, like I accumulate gear. My favorite pedal is the okay. So I'll talk a little technical here. So I'm mostly known as a bass player, but I do play guitar in Faster Than Light. And my favorite pedal, it's a MXR Phase 90,
Mhm.
and it's just a phaser. I think actually have it right here. Hold on. We I think I have my pedal board right here. I'll show it to everyone.
Awesome.
But this is what I use. So let me say, okay, so I'm gonna find it.
Yep.
The orange one right there
Yep.
is the MXR Phase 90, and I use that to some degree on almost everything when I'm playing guitar live. I just like the way it sounds. It's like my secret weapon. It makes my sound the way I want it to sound. I know Eddie Van Halen used a similar phaser on his music, and while I'm not comparing myself to Eddie Van Halen, I totally like share his passion for phasers because they're just again they color my sound in just the right way. That's my secret weapon.
Awesome.
The other secret weapon, and this is what most guitar players should tell you, and if they don't tell you this, they're lying. But really, this is the secret weapon: your fingers, because everything comes from your fingers. Your tone comes from your fingers. Your sound comes from your fingers. Everything comes from your fingers. It's your touch, and that's really your secret weapon. It's everyone's secret weapon.
Awesome. What's your favorite album of all times?
Led Zeppelin, Houses of the Holy. It's my favorite of all time, but ever so slightly, Boston, their second album. Everyone loves the first Boston album, with More Than a Feeling and Peace of Mind, but the second album, Don't Look Back, I think is better than Boston's first album, and that's kind of creeping really, really close. And I'll also give a nod to Rush Moving Pictures. Those are the three. That's the holy trinity right there.
Okay. What is your most recommended book to read?
The Hunt for Red. No, no, not that one. Red Storm Rising by Tom Clancy.
And
It's a fictional World War III story. Russians versus America, and it's just a great read. And I'd love. It's funny. It's funny that you asked me that question because I've read the book probably 20 times, and we recently moved. We moved 3 years ago into a new house, and somehow in the move I've lost the book or misplaced it. And I've been like, for the last couple of weeks, I've been like, oh, I got to get another copy. I got to get another copy. So now that you just asked me that question, I'm gonna write it down after our interview. I'm
sure,
gonna go on eBay and I'm gonna go find myself a copy.
sure, no problem. Now, what do you find is your one of your habits, if you do have, that makes you successful as a musician? What would you say that is?
I try to put myself into as many different playing situations as I can. So, and I play with a variety of people who have different backgrounds and influences. So, like the Zero guys, they're a little bit younger than me.
Mhm.
So, a lot of what we play as far as covers go are a lot of 80s stuff. Frankie Goes to Hollywood, EMF, a lot of danceable stuff, stuff that I wouldn't normally listen to. Um, some early 90s stuff like the Toadies and things like that. Stuff that I wouldn't normally put on my to listen to, but great songs, and I have fun playing with those guys. So that gives me kind of some exposure to some stuff that I would never normally pick up my bass to try to learn. Faster Than Light is all original stuff with a few covers thrown in there on that super rare occasion that we actually play a show, which our last show was 8 years ago. So that gives you an idea of how often we get together. But my other two projects, the Layovers and the Fugitive Souls, the Layovers is they're older guys. They're between 6 and 10 years older than me. Um, so there's some original stuff that we do with them, and then the Fugitive Souls. It's almost the same band as the Layovers. There's just a one or two member difference. But we do more 60 stuff. So we'll get into like the Doors, and we'll get into Dylan and stuff like that. Free. Can't even think of some of the other songs we do. So I get to play. I think being able to be in a lot of different situations that do a lot of different things. Now it also means at any one time I need to have a 90 to 100 songs in my head, because a typical night of playing in a bar where in my scene is you're probably playing 45 songs a night,
Mhm.
which sounds like a lot. And it's usually 3 to 3.5 hours of music playing nonstop with maybe a 15-minute break somewhere, you
Wow.
know. So there's always a lot of content that you have to have available. And what I've done now is I've started using an iPad on my music stand just to have some notes in front of me, just in case I have a brain freeze, or in the case of Zero, we don't really practice all that much. So like when we play a gig, that gig is actually practice for the next gig, if you know what I mean. So having some cheat sheets available, I'm not shy about it. I see a lot of bands doing it. Even I was watching an Alice Cooper video, and they had a shot from behind the drum set, and I saw the big teleprompters on either side of the stage that had the lyrics for Alice Cooper. So I was like, well, if he can do it, I can do it. I shouldn't feel any shame about it.
Yeah, they all do it. They all do it.
I don't blame them.
Even Prince would do it as well. It's like unbelievable. Now,
I
I, yeah, you.
Oh, go ahead, go ahead.
No, I have to ask you because this is the question everybody's is thinking about now. Is how many guitars do you have, Keith? You got to tell
Okay.
the truth. You got to tell
I,
the truth.
all right, I'm gonna tell you the truth.
Yeah.
I have 26 guitars and basses.
Okay, that's not bad. That's not
No,
bad.
tell my wife that.
uh, do
I
you have
have
do you have more pedals or more guitars and basses?
I have more pedals than guitars and basses. I probably have close to, I'm gonna guess I have close to 60 or 70 pedals, maybe more. When the pandemic hit and we weren't spending money on going out, the money went to pedals. I just bought one a couple of days ago, in fact. Um, but what happened was, like on Facebook, some of these companies were blowing, like DoD was blowing out their pedals for half price. So I bought everything. I bought everything I can afford, and I have some pedals that I've bought. I probably had them for over a year now. I probably haven't even taken them out of the box yet, but I will at some point. But one of the things I started doing, like the pedal board that I showed earlier, when COVID hit and there was like nothing to do, the only stores that were like really open were like the hardware stores. So like Home Depot and Lowe's. So I went and I bought some wood, and I bought a bunch of power tools, and I built myself a workbench and put it in my garage. And then I started building pedal boards. And so I built like 4 pedal boards, and I needed pedals for the boards. So I started buying pedals. I built a pedal board for my son Max, who plays bass and guitar as well. So it was
Very creative.
yeah. I mean, look, a guitar player never needs a reason to buy a pedal or even another guitar or bass.
Yeah,
You know,
I don't know if you notice or you're a fan of reverb.com, but that's a platform where a lot of the musicians like myself go to. And during the pandemic, I mean, they sold more guitars than before, and the demand was so big that some of the stuff was out of stock, completely out of stock.
yeah. I've never bought from Reverb.com, but I'm on their website every day. I'm always looking. I've been looking for an early '90s Les Paul Studio, Gibson Les Paul Studio guitar, and one day I'll find the right one on there and I'll pull the trigger. But I have a friend, John Haber, who owns a prominent music store here in upstate New York called Alto Music. And I always get great deals from him. And the people who've been working on my guitars now, I want to give a shout out to them. Beaumont Guitars in Northvale, New Jersey. I just bought a Jackson bass from them a couple of weeks ago. But they do like the best work. I have all my guitars set up there now. And they went through a time period also where with COVID, like I walked into the store one day, there was like they went from like 60 guitars hanging on the wall to like 5. And I said, what happened? He's like, our mail order business is just out of control. But, when COVID hit and people had nothing to do, people started turning to their hobbies. So that's what I did. I picked up woodworking because I always wanted to teach myself that, pedals because I love guitars, and collecting baseball cards because that's always been a passion of mine. And all of a sudden I had all this time because I was teaching from home. My days were short, and you go crazy if you're just sitting around watching TV.
Sure.
As much as I love to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, if you were going to a new planet and you can only take 3 things with you, what would that be? We're assuming you have water and food, obviously.
Okay. Okay, so
Like
I'll,
the stuff,
I'll
right?
get beat up if I don't say I'm taking my family with me, but we're gonna like not include that. We're gonna say material things.
We're,
If I could,
yeah.
if I could take 3 things with me, that's a great question. I don't know. I'm taking the guitar, probably an acoustic guitar because there's no electricity on another planet, probably. So I'll take an acoustic guitar and strings. We're going to count that as one.
Yeah.
I have to have something that will play music. So like a computer loaded up with iTunes so I can actually power and play. And then, I don't know. I'm taking a book. Taking a book.
Okay.
I don't know what book it would be, but I'm taking a book.
The one you're going to look.
The one I gotta look for, Red Storm Rising. I gotta take a book. I'm assuming my family's going with me because I'd have to take,
Yeah.
I'd have to choose them as number 1, or else I get beat up later.
Yeah, that's best. Yeah, absolutely.
Yep.
What is music success for you in your life?
I am already music successful because I get to listen to music on my own terms. I get to play music on my own terms. I don't have to answer to anyone. The only music, argument might be, hey, let's play this song. No, I hate that song. I don't want to play it. If that's as bad as it gets, then that's a win. But I'm already successful. I'm, like I said, I enjoy what I'm doing. I'm making music for me. I get to listen to music whenever I want, in the car, in my classroom, at school, when I have breaks. I'm just doing something around the house. I have some music going. I'm working in my garage. I have music going. That's, to me, that's successful. The fact that I'm able to do that, as much as I want, it doesn't get better than that. I don't have to be famous. I don't have to be rich. But if I have music in my life, that's success.
Hey, Keith, thank you so much for being on the show and for the time you gave us. It's really a pleasure to have you here. What's the best way for people to connect with you and actually listen to your music?
Okay, so there's 2 websites that I'll direct you to. So the first one is for Faster Than Light, www.ftlnation.com. FTL is in Faster Than Light. Mm-hmm. And my personal website, which also has a lot of music on it, is www.keithlennproject.com. KEITH Lenn, LENN project.com. And you can always contact me through the website. I have CDs for sale. I'm going to be putting Faster Than Light t-shirts up for sale any day now. There's some cool stuff on there. And please, Spotify, iTunes, whatever your favorite digital content provider is, check out Faster Than Light. Now We're Speaking French. Check out Blacker. Check out Someone I Know. And I always tell people this: music is really personal. There's a lot of stuff out there I don't like. And if you don't like my music, that's really, really cool. Don't have a problem with it. But if you like it, consider downloading it, consider streaming it, or consider turning someone else onto it. And even if you don't like it, maybe say, hey, I don't like it, but my best friend may love it. Let me turn my friend onto it. And we can all help each other that way. And again, the more streams I get, the more music I can make.
Hey, Keith, thank you so much for being here and being generous with your time.
Thank you for having me.
Hey, absolutely. It was a pleasure to have you here today. I really wish you the best. I hope you have lots of gigs, continue to buy many pedals and guitars and basses, because that's also what I do. And
Yeah.
when my girlfriend asked me why you buying so much stuff, I turn around and ask, why do you buy so many purses and shoes?
Yep.
It's the same feeling. It's the
Hey,
same feeling for different people, right?
it's okay to say because I want to, because I want it. Why'd you buy the guitar? Because I want it. Why'd
Because
you buy the shoes? Because I want them.
yeah,
That's okay.
because
Life is short.
because we can, basically, because we can. Okay, thank you so much for being here. It's been a pleasure. I want to thank our guests for listening to the show and see the show. Please support the show by sharing the show. And remember, we want you to be successful, because your success is really our success. Don't forget to live your dreams. And until I see you next time in the next episode, take care and be safe.
Thank you.